What is going on, everybody? Good afternoon. We got a little Seattle Seahawks stuff to go through. Normally, I would get my training camp recap video up in the morning, but I wanted to put the state of the channel video up in the morning. But quite honestly, even though I'm going to go ahead and do this video now because I want to say something, there's not going to be a lot to say about yesterday's training camp session. There was one, but it was very dialed back. So yesterday, Mike McDonald decided to have you wouldn't call it a rest day, but it's certainly a rest day compared to a typical training camp session. We had a walkthrough day. Walkthrough day, players aren't in jersey, they're not in uniform, they're not going at full speed, they're not hitting anybody. They're basically going through the mental aspect of football, not so much the physical stuff. And that's very important to them, but as an observer, you don't get very much out of it. So we as fans are just kind of sitting here and observing it. We can see the communication start to develop between the players. We can see the players learn where to be and when to be there. And it's good for them, obviously. It's important. I'm not denying the value of all that. But there isn't going to be a lot that we can learn from that particular training camp session. Nemhauser has this short little article on Hawk Blogger talking about what he was able to glean from the session. Again, it's not nearly as long as the others because there's just less information out there. Why McDonald decided to have a walkthrough session is at least worth thinking about for a little bit, because usually you wouldn't see a walkthrough after only 2 padded practices. And if the players are already worn out and tired and complaining, that's not a great sign. But the other aspect to this is there's a lot of mental stuff going on for these guys right now. We have a brand new defense, brand new offense. These players need to get ready physically, but they also need to get ready mentally, much more so than a typical offseason. Previous off seasons, we've been importing the same offense and defense from the previous year, importing a lot of the same players. And this year, that's not the case. None of these players have first-hand familiarity with McDonald's offense or McDonald's defense or Grubb's offense, actually. So kind of makes sense that you would want to take extra mental days, especially with some of the players that missed time during the OTAs. That's one thing Nemhauser mentions in this article. So yeah, we have a walkthrough day. I'm going to talk a little bit about what needs to be talked about. I will say the players like walkthrough days. So the players are going to appreciate this. So McDonald winning the players over early. You got to like that. But the little bit of stuff we have to digest, well, it's basically just injury stuff. And there was a little bit of injury, I'll say concern, because Geno Smith was not out there. Now, it was a walkthrough day, so it's not like it matters. And under normal conditions, you might just say he got a veteran day off, but that actually sounds like it had something to do with an injury. So Brady Henderson, who basically had most of the meaningful coverage on yesterday's training camp session, eventually uncovered that there was some hip and knee soreness. So it was not just a pure day off. It was actually a little bit injury related. It didn't sound very serious. It sounded like typical NFL stuff. But this is not what we needed to hear this early. We're not even in August yet, and already Geno Smith, maybe he's at like 96%, but he's not at 100%. You'd like to have your guys at 100% right now as much as possible, especially your quarterback, who, by the way, did go through some injury stuff last year. There was some injury. Geno Smith missed time last year. It wasn't even subtle. I think that he probably was playing somewhat injured for other games as well, but he actually missed time last year, flat out, period. So that's not ideal. Doesn't sound like it's going to be too big of a deal. But then again, we also heard that Draymond Jones's injury was not going to be that big of a deal, and he remained out yesterday. No Draymond Jones. That hamstring has now kept him out for, what? We're coming up on like 4 sessions, maybe 5. Now, it's a hamstring, so it kind of makes sense that it ended up lingering on longer than some people expected. That's the nature of hamstrings. By the way, still not really concerned about that because he's a veteran. and it's not like we're going to be leaning on him super heavily this year. I think he will be very much a part-time player. So, yeah, that's what I can say about that. But, yeah, the Geno Smith thing definitely got some pause. It sounded like he could have played if he needed to, of course. And why would you ever push somebody to that extent in training camp? But people are not going to be happy hearing anything about, well, any player on this team, but especially your starting quarterback. So, don't really know what's going on there. One little bit of good news was Mike Morris was back. So the elbow injury took a day plus a few extra plays, I guess. So Mike Morris, now it was a walkthrough day, but the fact that he was out there at all is encouraging. I don't think they would force him out there with an injury. They didn't force out Draymond Jones, so I don't think they would do it with Mike Morris. So that's cool. And honestly, that's really all we have. Witherspoon praised Geno Smith as being one of the best players during training camp so far. I like hearing that, but yeah, I don't really have too much else. There's not much else to say about a walkthrough training camp session. So we'll see if we learn a little bit more later today. But yeah, today's kind of a day of celebration. We've got our first preseason game, Bears-Texans, I think it is, something like that. I will be live streaming a watch along of the game. It's going to be my first stream on YouTube. Also going to be dual streaming it out to X and Facebook at the same time. And it's going to be my first YouTube stream in some time. So come on by. We're going to be hanging out. We will be watching the Hall of Fame game, but it's not going to be a focus of the stream at all. It's going to be very much a stream that gives us an excuse to just kind of congregate and talk about stuff while while a game happens to be going on in the background. I know that people are not going to be hyped up for a, Hall of Fame preseason game where none of the really relevant players are going to start. It might be Bears-Jets. I can't even remember who's playing. I mean, that's how much I care about the game. It's just going to give us an excuse to stream and mostly probably talk about Seahawks stuff because we haven't done that in a while. All right, so I hope to see you guys tonight. Come on out. We're going to be starting out the new month right with a day with a few different videos and then our first live stream in some time. Thank you for watching. Wish I had more for you, but sometimes you just have kind of a quiet day. I know that yesterday we waived Ricky Person, one of the running backs we had with an injury, and picked up another running back. Again, I really feel like Holani is going to end up being the starting running back, or, well, the fourth running back on this team, I should say. But Person was a guy who some people really liked, and they're bummed to see him go. So some people are going to feel a certain way about that, but just kind of playing musical chairs with some of the guys at the back of the roster. That's all I got. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Hope to see you tonight.